Welcome to chapter 9. Gratitude is the goal. Oh, I'm so grateful to be in chapter 9 with you. We've made it 9 chapters together. You're still with me. If you're watching, you haven't given up. And not only am I grateful to be here with you and am I grateful for this work, I'm grateful that when I sat down and I learned to shut up and sit, everything in my life got better. What I'm most grateful about is I learned, as you're going to read in this chapter, and you've been reading so far, I learned to rewrite the story of my own wounding. And we start this chapter with, again, a quote. I love quotes. I love poems as much as I love science and psychology. But this one was a really important one for me to include, and I want to share it with you just to set the tone of where we're going with this chapter. It says, "Nobody will protect you from your suffering. You can't cry it away or eat it away or starve it away or walk it away, or punch it away, or even therapy it away. It's just there. You have to survive it. You have to endure it. You have to live through it and to love it and to move on and be better for it. And run as far as you can into the direction of your best and happiest dreams across the bridge that was built by your own desire to heal." So when I learned to rewrite the story of what happened to me, that thinking, feeling, behaving process, I learned how to respond in a new way with a belief system. I understood the biological impacts of my belief system. I trained my mind. I managed my stress. I built new habits. I could then eventually land where you're landing right now, which is I was grateful for it all. The messes, the heartaches, the darkness, the awful. I could tell you stories, and you've probably already heard them on my podcast, of suffering and days where I would learn and read and write and journal and then drink a bottle of wine at night because I was just still so heartbroken and was just really wide open in my suffering. But this quote says it all. There was nothing I could do other than embrace all of me with gratitude. That's what shutting up and sitting is all about. So there are really 2 stories we've been telling in this book, is the science of behavior change and also the just incredible power of silence. And that silence is the piece that we've been missing in behavior change and personal development. So you've been learning how all this is happening biologically in the body, psychologically, socially, emotionally, mentally, physically. But at the deepest underpinnings of it all, you've been cultivating gratitude, and you've been cultivating the ability to learn how to embrace. And literally, I reach out, and if I were with you right now in this chapter, I would wrap my arms around you and hug you and say, I'm so grateful for you showing up and doing this work, because your healing impacts the healing of the world. And that's what makes this chapter really cool. So hang with me for one more chapter. And we'll talk a little bit about what you're going to do in this chapter. And then I promise the end is coming and you'll be able to take a breather. But in chapter 9 on gratitude is the goal, when we look at our table of contents, we have the 5 prompts for finding gratitude, which, when I first sat down and I started thinking about gratitude, it was easy to be like, oh, I love my cat. I love my dog. I love my job. I love my house. That's not the kind of gratitude that we're talking about in this chapter. The kind of gratitude that I'm going to get you to talk about and to think about, I've given you 5 prompters to start to get into some really juicy, not just grateful for all the good that's going on in your life, but learning how to be grateful for even the messes. Because the truth is, life isn't happening to you. It's happening to help you to heal so that you could help other people heal. I did that. My healing is now helping yours, and your healing is now going to help other people. And then we're going to talk about the 3 keys to nurturing gratitude. You get what you focus on. You've heard a lot through the book already about the law of attraction, how that works. That's just one part of one of the ancient teachings and wisdoms and current teachings and wisdoms that I've woven in throughout this book. But we have to nurture gratitude. Whatever we feed, whatever we focus, whatever we invest in, remember, whatever intention and attention we put out in the world, that's what we get back. And as a reminder in gratitude, now, why is it that you need to write down 5 things a day to be grateful for? Because if we go all the way back to the beginning of the book, 5 positives has the same impact as 1 negative neurologically in the brain. So for every 1 negative thought you have, you've got to have 5 positive ones. So remember, the brain is Velcro for negative, Teflon for positive. So we're giving you the tools in this chapter, but that's why it's 5 prompts every day and 5 gratitudes, just to keep the baseline of balancing out any of the negative. But when we focus on gratitude, we get things that create more gratitude in our life. And we've got a really cool tool in this chapter, and there's this really nice wheel, and it's got these 20 different ways. So if you're like, Yetta, I'm tired of writing my 5 gratitudes down every day, there's a really cool research tool that I found that it teaches you kind of how to go into different ways of expressing gratitude. It's not always just in written form. And of course, I always like to drop some research on you, so you're gonna be able to read some really cool statistics about what happens with gratitude with people. And as always, I've got my right brain activities. I've got some really cool poems in here for you all. This one, The U-Shaped Hole by Tara Moore, probably one of my favorites. And as you start to wrap up this chapter, we have another voice of mindfulness. This is one that is a really powerful testimony of gratitude. This is a client of mine, a minority client, who was really struggling with a lot of things as an African-American male in the corporate system. And when he was able to be grateful and embrace not only the wounds of his own life, but even to understand and really love and embrace and really be grateful for the woundings, the generational woundings of his ancestors, and use that to empower him to not only shut up and sit and go within and connect with that part of himself, but to learn to bring those wounds out in a place of wisdom, that he could express gratitude for all human beings and love and include and belong. All of his needs in his workplace and in his life were met. So you're going to hear a lot about Robert and his journey on using gratitude and healing a deep racial divide and a lot of unconscious bias in the workplace. So a real moving story, and I love that throughout this whole journey, you've allowed me to just teach you and entertain you, but walk you through all these resources. They're all in this chapter. As I'm kind of flipping through this and looking at it, one of the things that I want to remind you of is don't forget these resources on the episodes for the podcast that are out there. It's going to dive in and teach you a little bit more of each of these bullet points. But the choices that you've made every step of the way, every chapter, every exercise, everything you've done, it is making a difference. It is working. It's all starting to come together. And we wrap it up with a big bow on this chapter with gratitude, because here's the truth. There's more right with you than there is wrong. What if you operated with a belief system that in life in general and with people you interacted with, there was more right than wrong? That's the power of gratitude. So I'm excited to have been on this journey with you. I'm going to be back for one more video. We're going to wrap this up in our conclusion, talk about how all this starts to come together. Where do you go from there? What do you do next? So I'll see you in the video in the conclusion.